I'll be continuing today with the information from Tamar Taback from the Nexus School on awakening to our potential, putting on the crown as the true feminine within and included from masculine, as an inter-inclusion, whereas the separation of masculine and feminine, it's almost like the true masculine of the feminine or the true feminine of the masculine are already one. So blockages to this oneness, first internally and then in relationship, is one, financial security, because of all the associations we have with resources, provisions, reliability, independence, and so on. Two is relationships, security. This could be anything like suffocation, where it's issues of faith, worth, support, self-reliance, and obviously inadequacy, stagnancy, fear of failure. Patience is a big part. We have to embrace, receive, and accept our journey, because this battle is a part of our life. It's not all of us. We have tremendous resources and are connected to God, and God is the makom, the space of the world. What goes on in our brain just spirals out of control. So I'm here, Hineni. We can put the Emunah crown on with faith, and there's so much light. Emunah, moon, like our faith of how things will be. There's so much light we have to access that we just haven't brought it into that place yet. So we do our best with the tools we have, but the most beautiful light is appreciated by contrast of dark. And what is a hideous suit or like a false view of who we are as a woman, for example, prevents us from, and yesterday we spoke a lot about what that looks like, so in the other video, so prevents us from bringing God's glory and light into the situations and not allowing us to access our own crown, higher potential. Like, what is our belief that's keeping us stuck in the pattern of reactivity and the lower level functioning of unresolved emotions on history, our own history? Learning how to self-validate internally is that inner voice that's soothing, and that's how we can be that soothing for another. We can validate his masculinity, for example, whoever he is, first and foremost because of our own validity, and not embracing the God-given, but resisting will always lose to God, because God is God. And when we're out of alignment with what God gives, we self-inflict this pressure. So fear of being called crazy, of no one listening, of our perception being inaccurate, of ending up wasting the energy and being unsuccessful, that it's too dangerous, that we won't be able to maintain it, that we can't completely be self-reliant, it'll make life so grim and unpleasant, there's no right man, friend, or job for us. And so what's required here is a total transparency, bittul, nullification of this separation of it's mine, it reflects me, of who I am, rather a submission and egolessness to wear the crown is not needing to get it right, because we fall many times in the evolution of the goal is not perfection, it's giving the self permission to strive, to soften, emunah, having faith that it'll be okay, whatever, I make a mistake, it's almost like challenging our pessimism, our anxiety, so that we don't get hurt, so we don't try, so we don't share our gifts. And it's a transformer, because we have to bring effort to the unearthing, not looking at just the surface, but deeper and broader. We're, adorned with 24 jewels and braided hair, unclothed because there was no shame, and they were light bodies. This is the original Chava expression of life, the mother of all life. Skin of light versus after the skin was the sin. The skin is made out of leather, like binding us to what's really there when we can see the appearance. She was bedazzled for him to appreciate before. And Chava was not the first woman, actually. The first woman, or the first female, was rejected because Adam was awake during the creating and saw her covered in the debris of the process and vulnerable. Like they were back to back and got separated, is the story. But here, there's a realm of how he was awake during an Eve, during a Chava, that he watched come into creation, and it was too much for him. Man rejects the familiar, even if it's more beautiful, because there's this fantasy of a perfection, even though it's always fading in the partnership. So compared to Chava, for example, Sarah, Abraham's wife, the mother of the Jewish, or really all the nations, because even all the Christians from a lineage, or all the Muslims from a lineage, is from this time. So it says, compared to Chava, Sarah looked like a monkey. Compared to Sarah, we look like monkeys. Like, they were so beautiful. Yet people look back and say, oh, they were like cave women, right? So that tells us, in the Jewish tradition, we look back and we say, wow, we're getting further and further from this original lightness. Yet at the same time, the change in the first Chava compared to the second Chava, she went back to the dust, the first Chava. So by rejecting, I think we'll finish this today, by rejecting Chava, the first Chava, Adam had to go the harder route, because if you notice the second Chava, she sinned. She listened to the serpent, Chavai, the snake, Chavi. Chava 1 is having so much to offer to a partner, children, household, community, but just one man for you, and he rejects you. The symbol of feminine nurturance, love, and compassion is the breast, which in Hebrew is the same word for demon, because all her pain flipped for her to become dark. And her name became Lily with a TH at the end of it. So you say Lily with a th. Lily, and I don't want to say it all together because of the energy, but Lily, th. Lily, th. And so, which is like night, which is like Lila, Lile, which is dark, exile. And Eve is an English way to say Chava. We say the Eve is the evening. So the higher level you're at, the more you have to face these spiritual forces. The demons don't bother with low-level people. Yelala is grief, crying, despair, rejection, and loss. Femininity at its worst is angry, jealous, vengeful, the witch who hurts and causes grief. The Yetzer Hara for men is different than women. It's of sadness and pain, versus a man is more like anger and control, we learn. So we have to learn how to give with boundaries. And I want to make one more comment. When we say the ascendant or the North Node, there's another in the charts of astrology, or we say the Mercury, the Venus, the Neptune, Uranus. There's another element there which is not talked about often. And in Jewish astrology, it's very careful. You only say it when you need to. But the dark side of the moon. So we know the Earth sign. We say, like, this is where the moon was. But it's really in relation to the Earth. Actually, the dark side of the moon, it's like the other side. Because if you think of the Earth and then you have the moon, it's always sort of this back side of the moon is always sort of hidden. The sun, we go around the entire sun. Jupiter goes around, like these are all going around. But the moon for us, we don't see the other side. So that's what we learn. So what we say is that's the darkness. That's also like our mystery, our relationship with what we don't know. And a lot to do with, in our sense, where we could elevate the most, where we have the most untapped potential. So in the first world, we have the chaotic light. Second world is vessels of repair. God's light is in the primitive vessels that cracked, becoming absorbed into the shards, and faint whispers that can be in other vessels. God is hard to see in this world. It's like the dark side of the moon that I just described is like the place where we have the biggest revelation possible, potential, right? Biggest potential. So rectification is learning truth, doing good, having faith, and emunah. Emunah means the nursing from the source, like just secure attachment to the source, not to the, with a non-attachment to everything that comes later, as vessels. So the third world is really matching the light from the first revelation into the prepared vessels. And redemption, Geula, Mashiach, the third temple, the house for God in this physical world. It's first and foremost a spiritual house. It's a dwelling. So the first world's chaotic lights, the second world, the vessels of repair, third world, match the light from the first revelation into the prepared vessels, and God's name will be revealed and all will know God. The first Chava is holding the chaotic lights and she shatters. She was so brilliant and luminous and powerful, but he couldn't receive it. He wasn't ready. It was premature. She has nowhere to go, so she breaks. Second Chava is preparing the vessels for femininity. The third Chava, we can merge these two women. The vessels are refined to meet the divinity, and there's risen all the 7 stages in her development, and is fully connected to God and reclaims her femininity. And all she wants to bestow and bring in order to heal herself, her husband, and the world. The messianic woman who can break through blockages, spiritually dwelling through even the places where, we're not attached, so it can't get in either. The way to work with pain, rejection, and suffering is not to resist it or say you're bad. It's to say you were rejected. Of course you're bad. You had nowhere to put yourself. Of course, you're angry, promiscuous, or hurtful, but deep inside you, there's a spark that wants to be liberated. Something inside you didn't have a home, a dwelling. So when we go through these 7 stages in the development, we can think of it as like from the Malchus up to the crown. So the intellect, Keter, Chachma, Bina, and then the baby of Das, knowledge. But really we have these 7 stages going up through the Zeir Anpin levels, but also we say the 7 heavens. There's many ways to look at it, and there's even like the 7 altogether 7,000 years. There's after the 6,000th year we go into the 7th stage, which is the Mashiach time, and according to the Jewish years we have 5783. Some even say that there's 165 years not accounted for during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, which brings us now only 52 years away from the year 6,000. So the way to work with pain, rejection, and suffering, again, is not to resist or say you're bad, but rather to recognize that God only creates good, and we're making a place to incorporate our greatest light into our life. The holy light is trapped in a black hole, like the other side of the moon, for example, but it can be dissolved. And what does it mean to wear a crown? Patience is the crown, is to be a messianic woman in our fullest potential, to breathe into more power than we could have ever imagined, and recognize that we were wearing before an ill-fitting suit of femininity. Hope that was meaningful, and I found it very enriching and empowering. And in thinking of my own self, somebody who I felt they weren't ready for the light, I kind of shattered. I felt the lily energy at that time. I felt like the screaming out into the world my pain silently, and so much darkness, but out of it coming the light, preparing for the femininity, and then for the proper union. And it gives me hope, it gives me patience. Thank you. Bye.